Welcome to the Star News Network, where we have the hottest news in all of IDC space. Here again, I'm Thaddeus Wiseau, your host for today's breaking story on an in-depth look at the different archetypes available at super creation. Archetypes are one of the two largest deciding factors in what a super is good at, and what they can do. In Indominant, there are 5 archetypes that supers can be: an Arbiter, a Blaster, a Bruiser, a Guardian, or a Hunter. Each archetype has a main role that they fill in a team, but not all Arbiters are the same, and that goes for every other archetype. Every archetype benefits from certain main stats in their own way, as well as gaining damage modifier based on their power stat, and increased base health and health per level based upon their durability. Each archetype has their own unique interaction with the drive power resource system. They also have 2 archetype abilities that only that archetype has access to in order to ensure that they can fill their main role. Lastly, each one has their own special set of talents for each power set. That means each archetype has over 150 total possible talents to choose from. With that said, let's dive into each archetype. Arbiters are everyone's favorite teammate. They support their allies from a distance, while they suppress their enemy's ability to move and fight effectively. Arbiters' most important main stat is Intellect. They derive their attack modifier and control modifier from it, as well as their damage reduction. Arbiters increase their defense by their durability stat, as well as their health and health per level growth. Lastly, just as every archetype, their damage modifier is equal to their power stat. As one of the longest ranged archetypes, Arbiters increase the range of all non-melee powers to 10 units. Arbiters have a special interaction with the drive system. They are the only archetype that can reduce the drive cost of powers, though only once per round, but this comes at the cost of them not being able to recover drive during combat. The cost reduction effectively increases their maximum drive pool, meaning that they can start off strong in combat but have less staying power when combat lasts a while. A good Arbiter knows when the best time to use their drive is, and does so strategically. This is due to their extremely strong healing capabilities. In return, whenever an Arbiter takes a break, they recover a large amount of drive. Their first archetype ability is Heal, which allows them to heal themselves or an ally. Their second archetype ability is Invigorate, which lets them grant an ally an additional action point, making them much more capable in combat. Arbiter's talents give them additional support capabilities. For example, for fire manipulation, an Arbiter can convert their inherent effect to a healing over time effect for allies near burning targets instead of a damage over time effect on enemies, and even allow damaging powers to heal their allies instead of hurting them. Blasters are the resident glass cannon archetype in Indominant. With an almost 100% focus on dealing as much damage as possible, they are a force to be reckoned with, but can easily be taken down if they aren't careful or don't have the protection of their allies. Blasters are the only archetype that derive combat stats other than damage modifier from the power main stat. Their attack modifier is also equal to power, with their control modifier being equal to half of their power. They have the unique ability to replace the control modifier scaling of powers that only deal damage with their attack modifier. Blasters gain increased defense from the agility main stat and gain increased health from durability just like the rest of the archetypes. Blasters are also unmatched when it comes to range, and increase the range of all non-melee powers to a staggering 12 units. Blasters' interaction with drive is that they start every day and combat with low drive, but as the fight goes on, their drive continues to recover quickly. They start off cold and need to warm up to get going. This means that the longer combat goes on, the more dangerous a blaster becomes. If the baddies leave you conscious for long, you will be sure to end the fight. The blaster's first archetype ability is Loaded Dice, which lets them reroll the damage of a power after seeing the result. At higher levels, the reroll gains a bonus, and they can choose to keep the original in case it was higher than the reroll. Their second archetype ability is Overcharge, which lets them consume additional drive to make a power deal extra damage. Blasters' talents are all about increasing their offensive capabilities, especially at range. But there are some defensive and utility talents to help them not be completely dependent on their allies to stay safe. An example of the type of talents Blasters get is their Ice Manipulation Tier 5 talent Piercing Shard, which makes their ice powers no longer chill enemies and instead builds up stacks on themselves to release as a damaging attack. Bruisers are large and in charge, like me. They tend to be big and strong, and they can take a punch or two and dish out their fair share. They're one of 2 of the most defensive archetypes, but, unlike Guardians, their secondary objective is to be good at offense. A Bruiser's strongest main stat is Might, which grants them increased attack modifier and damage reduction. No other archetype comes close to the value of damage reduction that a Bruiser can achieve. Other than that, they also gain control modifier based on their durability, incentivizing them to have a high health pool as well. Bruisers are a more standard archetype when it comes to the drive system. Their recovery feature allows them to recover drive whenever they successfully hit an enemy with a melee attack or when they take damage or are affected by a negative status effect, up to once per round. This means that they can stay long in a fight so long as they are an active participant and are doing what they do best, getting up close and personal. The first archetype ability that Bruisers have is Brutal Strike. This archetype ability is a basic type of attack where they strike their opponent with hand, foot, or even their head if they so choose, to deal damage to a target. At higher levels, the damage dice rolled by this ability become explosive. Their second archetype ability is their second wind, which lets them regain some health so that they can continue to stay in the thick of the fight. Lastly, Bruiser's talents are oriented towards enhancing their toughness as well as the power of their melee attacks. They become a force to be reckoned with and difficult to take down as they gain their higher tier talents. One example of this is the Earth Manipulation Tier 5 talent Emergency Shell, which lets them use a minor action to gain multiple stacks of their Stone Skin inherent effect. Guardians are typically the leader of a team, as they stand at the front, ready to act as a shield for their allies. They are very defensively oriented, but not necessarily in a large and powerful way. They are also capable supports for their team by providing protective and amplifying effects and restricting their opponents. They have the highest defense of all archetypes, making them difficult to take down by blocking and deflecting oncoming attacks rather than being able to take a beating like Bruisers. Guardians focus on durability as their main stat. Durability increases their defense and control modifier, meaning they will likely have among the highest health of any archetype, second to Bruisers, while intellect increases their attack modifier. When it comes to drive mechanics and drive recovery features, Guardians are similar to that of Bruisers, and as you will soon see, Hunters as well, in that they do not change the basic drive mechanics, and they can consistently recover drive by defending themselves from attacks or resisting negative effects. Guardians have some extremely unique and special archetype abilities in Taunt and Embolden. Taunt is their first one, and it lets them goad enemies into attacking them and rushing headstrong into the Guardian, while Embolden infuses their allies with the fortitude to shrug off damage as they feel energized to succeed and win the day. Guardians' talents improve their toughness, ability to control and restrict their enemies, and the impact of their actions to aid and protect their allies. A talent which shows the style of effects they can gain is the Light Energy Tier 3 talent, Bright Release, which causes their Taunt archetype ability to be able to consume their surging light stacks from their inherent effect to make it more effective. The final archetype in Indominant is a special one, the Hunter. Hunters are extremely maneuverable, with the highest movement of any archetype, as well as being sneaky and effective at both melee and moderate range. They end up being a sort of jack of all trades compared to other archetypes. They have good defensive capabilities, impactful offensive ability at both melee and range, and can regularly inflict negative status effects on their enemies. That doesn't mean they aren't different and unique though, as their archetype abilities and talents will make that clear. Hunters focus on the agility main stat as their bread and butter, gaining increased attack modifier and defense based on their agility, and increased control modifier based on their durability, meaning that increasing their health by having high durability also makes them better at controlling their opponents. Hunters again, like Bruisers and Guardians, do not modify the basic drive mechanics, and regain drive by successfully affecting their targets with damaging powers, even if something reduces or negates the damage those powers deal. This means that they really want to focus on taking advantage of positioning with their high movement so that they can regain as much drive as possible. However, this means they can only regain drive based on their own actions, unlike Bruisers and Guardians who can regain it in response to enemy action. Here we go, this is what really makes the Hunter special. With their first archetype ability, Covert Strike, Hunters can deal increased damage to targets when they are attacking at advantage, and this even makes attacks become penetrating at higher levels. Their second archetype ability, Camouflage, lets them quite literally turn invisible, or at least as close as possible. When a target comes close enough, they can see the shimmer of light as it bends around the Hunter, revealing their position. As we wrap things up with the Hunter, I couldn't let you go if I didn't tell you about their talents, which make them even more mobile and stealthy, as well as much more dangerous when targeting a single enemy. A perfect example is the Psy Blade Tier 3 talent for the Psionics power set, which causes their next melee attack made from camouflage using their second archetype ability to deal additional damage. Well, that was a deep dive into what makes each archetype in Indominant unique in their own way. Next time I see you, we will begin talking about powers, and oh boy will that be a doozy. This is Thad signing off. I'll see you next time on the Star News Network. Don't forget to tell me about your supers in the comments.